Shirley here with Jupiter point of Thales. And we have ascendant approaching to Pluto, midheaven in Scorpio. It's Marcy. Mars is retrograde in Cancer, and it's separating from a trine to Saturn. But this is the night of Jupiter and the hour of Venus. And Venus is also ruled by Mars. So Moon is applying to oppose Chiron. And for the topic of discussion, I want to bring in the good energies of, first of all, the Spica and Chiron. So we're going to read a little bit about Spica. Spica astrology. And again, we're going to use the cookbook of astrology. Another way in which you can do is read in about talismans of Spica. In fact, why not? Let's do that. And that way, you can bring in, by the way, before you buy talisman, and let's go with the picture here, because this is going to be fascinating. And Spica has to do with justice and fairness in trade, but also with heuristics. So this is Christopher Warnock. And in general, before you order talisman, it's good to see what the energy of the talisman, because after you order the talisman, is already active in your field. Okay, it's important. And so that's something I love doing. And in that way, your path, if you're supposed to purchase this talisman, you will receive the wealth. And sometimes you're supposed to do this talisman yourself. You will do that and then will purchase the talisman. So there's the fixed star. What does Spica talisman do? So this is by Cornelius Agrippa. Under the spike, which is Spica, they made an image of a bird or a man laden with merchandise. It conferred riches and make one overcome contentions. Takes away scarcity and mischief. And so, yes, so this is about Spica. Let's see if we have more. So this is because the most popular fixed star for this business, Christopher Warnock. And this limited edition, I don't know if they still have them. And you can get that at renaissanceastrology.com if you want to purchase one for yourself. You can see the actual chart of making these talismans. Okay. Spica is considered to be the most benefic and positive of the fixed stars. Is located in the sheaf of wheat in the constellation, the sidereal constellation, okay, of Virgo. The front of a talisman shows an image of a beautiful bird created by very talented Maggie Nigel Jackson, and a description that comes from Agrippa, which we just read. The quadripertitus variant of Hermes on the 15 fixed stars says about Spica, signified those things about which men laugh, jest, and are gladdened. So it also brings good humor. It makes one holy to conquer in causes, and it delivered man from difficulty and distress. So this is also a feel-good. This is new to me. Feel-good planet causes the bearer to accumulate much wealth. Liber Anoch, about Hermes and the fixed star, from Hermes and the fixed stars. Its virtue is to increase the wealth of him that beareth it worthily. And again, worthily is important because we're talking about the scales, and in general, when we work with the planets, to work in a way that is benefic for yourself and the world is important. It conquered causes in the court of law. so juristics, and extricated a man from distress and difficulties. It will make him that beareth it very rich. So rich is freedom and victory, for example, in court. And so, with the topic of discussion today, um, yes, it has to do with a lot of very sensitive topics. And another aspect I would like to bring before this discussion is Venus sextile or Venus trine Pluto, because it's Venus hour. Or it's Venus hour, but it's she ruled by Mars, so Mars trine Pluto. This is excellent for the spirit of the times. I'm doing it with synastry. The reason is so good for the spirit of the times is because right now we are during a couple of months where Mars is going back and forth with opposing Pluto, and this is very challenging opposition. It is in a fixed, now it's going to be coming from the fixed axis. So we're done with the cardinal axis. This opposition is in the fixed axis, and Mars in Leo is very strong, and Pluto in Aquarius has a deep work to do. And this is a most volatile war aspect, direct confrontation, intense confrontation. So let's talk, bring in the sextile, bring in more harmonious energies, blending of these energies. With Mars sextile Pluto, Mars can fire up Pluto's desire for rebirth, while Pluto can toughen Mars' resilience when facing challenges. It's good influence on the willpower to make things happen on a larger scale. Pluto, also to do with psychology and taboo topics in Aquarius, is hidden projects of programming of the nervous system using psychology and electricity and even gravity waves. Taboo topics about consciousness and the nervous system. Mars in Leo is royalty. Pluto can embolden Mars to transform their lower desires. Pluto can help Mars remove the root cause of their attachment. When I say attachment is not healthy. And can push Mars to evolve from the ashes of the past. The god of war won't be reborn unless they die. Okay? Mars can coax Pluto out of their shells, building Pluto's confidence and self-assertiveness. Mars instills in Pluto willingness to take risks and a thirst for adventure. So this is where those energies can blend, where the crisis is mitigated. In the trine, sexual planets and sexual compatibility. What? Your born might have been born during Jurassic era? But it's primal quality around it, okay? Um, okay. Mars knows to push and Pluto knows how to ride. Interesting. In love, this requires utmost fidelity. Your loyalty must reassure each other's fear of betrayal. And so, this is great theme to start the time with. And let's also bring a Venus sextile, Venus trine Pluto. But even more so, Moon is applying to Chiron. So let's do Moon trine Chiron, or the sextile, which is more active. Moon sextile Chiron synastry. So this is about, right now Moon is opposing Chiron, which is an ouchie. So we bring in the sextile. And this is a good thing to say to yourself. I'm a compassionate healer, creating safe space for emotional growth and nurturing. So there's the Moon, and then there is Chiron, and that is the sextile. Moon sextile Chiron represent harmonious and supportive connection between your needs. Yes, okay, no. And this is astromatrix.org. So harmonious connection between your needs and the capacity for healing and growth. This aspect facilitates understanding and empathy for each other's emotional wounds and vulnerabilities. Moon symbolizes emotional nature, and Chiron represent inner wounds. Okay, so nurturing to our inner wounds. Natural flow of emotional healing and support. Because right now it's not in the sky, we need to bring that energy. Providing safe and nurturing space to express emotions and work through any past traumas. The sextile aspect encourages open communication and willingness to listen and understand each other's emotional needs. So, the topic of discussion, and I will begin with a story. I'll begin with two stories. One, when I was volunteering in a developing neighborhood, a traditional family that lived there they were always feeding us and so on, and I was teaching the children English and so on. And one day there was this activity, okay, of all the volunteers and the families in the swimming pool. And next to me, they said, one of the family members, adult, said that all LGBTQ people must die. I have had a lot of friends from gay community. If you are in university, then of course you will have friends from gay community. And that was very shocking to me. Also, for these communities, a lot of them want to have a king, especially from Maghreb societies. And that was very weird. Another story, which is incredibly related, when I was in high school, I lived with my mom by my grandmom to study in this high school. And this high school was a special school in that you would go to regionally, okay? If you lived in the central areas in Israel, Ramat Gan for that matter. And as we were in high school, you knew that if you didn't want to for sure be recruited to 8200, which is an elite intelligence unit, it's better to take French than Arabic. Now, because Arabic was already very difficult, the structure of Arabic, of biblical Arabic, is very difficult, and I'm half European, so French is coming more flowy to me, so I took French anyway. But the people that would take Arabic, immediately intelligence 8200. 8200 is considered elite unit. There were even a controversy For example, when I was volunteering, my student in English, they wanted to go to 8200. So they had somebody from linguistics department that was teaching people Farsi there. And I said, they can connect you too. And indeed, I made that connection. And so when they would come to our high school from the army to market, so this is the difference between periphery, okay, City of the Seven Wells when I studied in academia, and with the central Israel. From the periphery, first of all, you wouldn't get in Manila, which is when you are supposed to be recruited, you would not get 8200. In many cases, okay, you had to ask for it particularly, and sometimes because of your region, okay, sometimes there would be like organized crime in certain cities and stuff like that. So because it is intelligence, you have to come from location where they don't fear that you will be a double agent or something like that, whether it's right or wrong, okay. So it would be very difficult. People had to go the extra mile to recruit, and that other person that studied with me, they also came from the periphery. But in central Israel, the army would come to you to high school. We were 16, 17, before we would get Manilas or anything like that. And they would market elite units. Okay? And so the way they marketed intelligence was they explained to us that Israel has come with innovative techniques to interrogate people. No torture, no psychological torture, no torture whatsoever. Now, it's very easy to understand. If somebody is a spy, they are very lonely. You give them a cup of coffee and you have a conversation, and you feel that they will not have bad implications, and it has to be true that they will not have bad implications for speaking with you. Why do you think the Finns has housing first and open dialogue to treat schizophrenia? I addressed it previously, okay? First of all, it's the only thing that cures schizophrenia. And secondly, if you are the smart one, then you will host for the people to speak up. Now they're not going to work against your country. You don't even need to recruit them to intelligence, by the way. If you neutralize those who come to work against you, you don't even need to recruit and send people risking that they will be recruited to another place. And so, but explained to us very simply, Israel came up with technique, unique, innovative technique to interrogate people with no torture whatsoever. Why? Because we were supposed to be intelligence. We're supposed to be an 8200 elite unit. They wanted us, demographic, from the demographic that they wanted. And so if you ask why did they have to market, well, because if you're doing, let's talk about Richard Feynman. Richard Feynman was not recruited to war during the Second World War because he was working on Manhattan Project. So because he was very important in his lab and it was also important for national security, then he could say, okay, they counted him in as cuckoo. You need to read his book. He worked hard for that. He pissed off a psychiatrist. So psychiatrist said, "You are cuckoo," and he said, "Listen, I know what I did and so on, but I'm not dumb enough to not try to take advantage of it. But also I work for this and that project, and please, I'm important to national security. My students need me. My family needs me. Please don't recruit me." And that's how he did not serve in battle in World War II, okay? Because he was physically competent. And so for most people that are in those areas where elite units come to market themselves, and even in mandatory army service, they have ways to get away. So they could study physics, they could study engineering, they could work for Rafael or other type of. Okay, it's a company that is traded in New York, so it's not okay. They're traded, so that they could work for these projects, and so to bring them to the intelligence, to bring this great mind to the intelligence, you had to market yourself. But the most important thing they had to say to us is Israel came with unique ways. You won't have to torture people. Because what they're saying is not you won't be tortured if you're sent on a mission. Is they're saying you will not have to torture people. That's their marketing. And they told us like this. Israel, and this is important, listen to the story. Israel came up with this unique technique. It's not a unique technique, okay? Somebody comes to you, you suspect this, suspect that. You give them a nice meal, and you insinuate that here they will have a sauna. Here they will have they will be believed. If they talk about something happened to them, you are believed. You get in Finland, it's no problem. You get housing first, independent of ability to work, and you are believed. And not only that, when you want to do something with your life, you are supported, okay? And in general, that person is so lonely that they want to, and for their health is important for them to speak. So this is the technique, it's just the truth. People are tortured not to speak, but to forget of what they said. And so this was the marketing for people who could get away from mandatory army service with ease of doing important projects, like Feynman, okay? And the marketing was, you will not have to torture people. And what else did they tell? They said, we tried to go with this technique. We tried to go to MI5, MI6, the British Secret Services, and they told us, no, we are okay with torture. We are okay with our old ways. When I was 17 in high school, I still remember this conversation. And those were people that came to market as elite units. So they're doing two things. One, if you work by us, you will not have to torture people. Remember what see the marketing. It's not even you won't be tortured. You will not have to torture because they know that to torture is a trauma that a person gets PTSD for because they understand that it shouldn't happen. PTSD, and I know from veterans that served also in US, simply because I was a victim of narcissistic abuse, and I wrote poetry to express on myself, and then some veteran told me, you see, I have no problems because the only problem is you have to be active about over this thing to change that, and also PTSD you get if you did something that you think you shouldn't be. If you did something that shouldn't be, then you get PTSD. Which is why disobeying illegal order is so important for the health of our warriors. And so, not only they told us you will not have to torture by us, but if you go elsewhere, they don't want our techniques. So if you go to work with other intelligences, and you can, okay, if you are, it's not even about being double agent. Some people have dual nationalities, but also it's a job. And so they don't want escaping of great mind. If you go to, let's say, live in London, then you go to make degree in Oxford, okay? Then you could be recruited to intelligence there. It's not betrayal in Israel because you don't necessarily will work against Israel. It just means that you go to a job there. So they didn't want escaping of great minds. And so they told us, if you work by us, you're not tortured. But if you go there, they didn't want our methods. So there you will have, not you will be tortured, you will have to torture, which means you will have what? PTSD. We were 17, okay? Army service mandatory. Now, for me, I was dealing with depression, so anyway, it was not relevant. But for other people, and if you understand, if it's not relevant, it was all that bad. Like they understood they will not survive in army. And so, and by the way, I'm advocate in Netherlands. We have assisted that for people who deal with mental crisis. It's a very tedious experience, and we're trying to make it easier so people can access possibility to say no, and so they can say yes to life. Okay, the accessibility of that actually makes people say yes to life. I'm also trying to assist to make that possible in Israel. So. Um, And so this story tells you, okay, they weren't marketing you won't be tortured. They were marketing, which is also important. If they were marketing, you will not have to torture. If you work for our intelligence, you will not have to torture. If you work for other intelligence, you will have to torture. This is why approaches to mental health that advise people to rape or to take anger on other people, they are perpetuating PTSD, because if you torture, you have trauma. If you come with war trauma and then you take it out on your wife, you take it out on your kids, okay, or rape people, then you have more trauma. You're perpetuating for more trauma cycle. It's excellent for those who sell you drugs. It's excellent for those to whom you pay, I don't know, 1,000 euro for a meeting privately, because you don't want people to know that you have something this or something that. People, they come from elite unit in army, whether it's NATO, whether it's IDF, whether it's Marines, okay? These people, they are also, in USA, you have 3 degree. If you serve in the army, in elite unit, and you are alive, when you come back, you have a 3 degree in Ivy League universities. For some people, it's a way to break through cycles, but they don't have money for university. This I know from Tim Ferriss. And the problem with USA is people didn't go to army. They have a lot of suicide in Ivy League. Because conditions there are not too intense, yes. And so, for that's a way. Also, when you say, oh, but IDF is forget IDF for a second. Tomorrow, they say Declaration of Independence for Palestine, okay? They will have an army. It's going to be either PLO or Hamas. So the desire in terms of the international scape is that it won't be either of them, because that's fucking scary, okay? If tomorrow this becomes an army, not a guerrilla, they're already operating with the budget of an army and the definition of a guerrilla, which means that they're not required to take ethics of war and responsibility of an army. But they work with budget of that some armies would like to have, and this is important. When you have such situation, it's not about Palestine. Anywhere in the world, when you have such situation, organization operates. They're defined guerrilla, but they have a budget of army. It means they are lawless, and the lawless first towards their citizens. Here we have IDF. We are still fighting for people who have PTSD from army to get their rights so that they can recover. And we're still fighting that if somebody went nuts and gave an order that they shouldn't have given, that would be held accountable. And you won't be considered traitor when you say that. Okay, so imagine PLO and Hamas. Imagine guerrilla organization that get budget of army. Way worse. And you understand I'm risking my life to say this. So that connects to another topic. And when I studied politics and governance, There was the question of why do people vote for Prime Minister Bibi, who's right wing, and then complain about the Bibi. And they say, well, it's always those people that come from the Maghreb, from the East, and so on. It's very simple. People coming, let's say, from Morocco. King of Morocco, I think, is married to Jewish woman. In Morocco, today and also before the war, great tolerance to Jews. So they get along fine. Now, if you have families here, you're not just going to move to Morocco, because if there is war, they can change the king, comes a new king, and they can say, well, fuck off, all of you. And this is how Moroccans had to immigrate to Israel. That's how they got to Israel. It's not because there was okay, it was not a pilgrimage. They just escaped another Holocaust. Holocaust was not just in Europe, but also Northern Africa. And so, demographically, if you're dealing with families that bring 10, 14 children, and they're not Jewish, for the only way to ensure that you will not be persecuted here in Israel or Palestine is regime that, unfortunately, is beginning to remind regime of Assad. Assad came from Alawite, okay? And Alawite were close to Shia, and they were minority, but they also granted freedom of religion to minorities. So, for example, Christians. And they preserved the cultural minorities in Syria. But they did that in ways that are highly controversial, to say the least, and today is no longer Bashar al-Assad in Syria. But the majority came from Sunna, but it's not the same Sunna of other countries. And so what they did, they were slaughtering, they would be slaughtering all Alawites, all Shia. So now, for example, there's no Bashar al-Assad. Syrians have to escape if they're not Sunna, because they can be slaughtered. Nobody will talk about that. So that was the complicated situation for Bashar al-Assad. And so here, and if it's another culture, it's another culture. You won't tell another culture how to live. But then for these people, they want to have king, so they think like king of Morocco. But it's the same, at the same time, they don't want the king to have too much authority. Because, and for that to happen, they need to be friendly to any possible colonizers coming from the West, because they make less children. And so they have more human rights. Now, what happens if you went and said, I only want to be by the colonizers? The colonizers, even in and amongst themselves, they have this habit that is reminded of mkultra, where they do forced sex operations, or hermaphrodite, and is forced. I'm not talking about gender affirming care. And that means people lose fertility, and this causes neurological issues that can cause depression and suicide. Okay, and but then they torture these people and they make them spies or double agents. And so, for these people from the Maghreb, they don't want that. So they say LGBTQ people, all of them, according to our culture, all of them must die. They don't say mkultra. They say LGBTQ is forbidden according to our religion, to our culture. But at the same time, they also are very happy to host you if you come from more individualistic society, because they want the human rights. And so it's a double game here, because a king would promise them that they will not be persecuted as people, but the king is also exploitative. However, colonizer, they do this in and amongst themselves, so of course people that are not from from their own, and they need biodiversity. Inbred colts, they need biodiversity. So they are the biodiversity, with the Moroccans, the North Africans, the Africans, and so on. Also in Indonesia and the Philippines and Vietnam and so on. So what happens with the situation is that people have to play double game. And the thing is that they cannot talk about this because otherwise, instead of doing housing first like the Finns and open dialogue, they're afraid to be taken put as hospitals, to be made mental case and to be castrated. That's the issue. So when I go back for why is this weird operations to make people double agents and then to torture them to forget things, that's the techniques that for basically when they were coming, when I was 17 and studying Oil Shem Ramat Gan, when they were coming to recruit people to 8200, I was taking French, but people taking Arabic, this would be a problem for them when they were coming to recruit people to 8200. Then they said, by us, you don't have to do mkultra. They weren't saying that in those words, but they said to us, we're not like the British. You don't have to do MK Ultra here. If you work by them, but they didn't want our methods. And their methods is to do these forced operations, torture people, to make them forget, and then for them to deliver information. Now, if you rape somebody, information comes wrong. They have hypervigilance. They will see things but will not be able to connect. You will not have full picture. So it's basically also unprofessional. When you want to do intelligence to make sure you're not infiltrated, this is unprofessional way to do it. People that countries that work with MK Ultra infiltrated countries. And MK Ultra is not NATO. You understand? You say, oh, it's from USA. USA is a couple of lodges that broke free from the lodges of Great Britain. I'm going to say it again. USA, where the CIA is coming from, is a couple of lodges that broke free from the lodges in Great Britain. That's the foundation of Declaration of Independence of USA with Planet George. Uranus that's about to go into that degree where there was the Declaration of Independence. And so back to Israel, 8200, they wanted to tell us, if you come to work by us, and they know that if you do something with your life, they want to recruit you. If you do it by us, you will not have to do MK Ultra. The only way to antidote centralist tyrannical regime, because not every king is king of Morocco, and even there is not the same rights that you would get in a country that's not ruled by a king, is to listen very carefully for what I said now and find for yourself the points of interferences. So you know that psychiatrically, schizophrenia is treated by Believe in the patient and housing first independent of ability to work, and supporting them when they want to do something with their lives. You know that all that is not that is not cure. It is war crime, globally. You know that while there's absolutely nothing wrong with LGBTQ, forced medical operations, especially to do with fertility or the sex organs, also the tribal ones, okay, is something that you don't want to be happening. And you know that those things are used to create people who torture, because it's very difficult to torture people is very difficult. It's a trauma on you. You know that you're doing something wrong. And also you know that you don't need to do that because they would love to speak with you. And you know that the more human rights there is on earth, and inclusivity for to women, but also for to gay society, and a respect and autonomy for yes, no, maybe, the less you need what? Double agents. The lodges know that because ghetto lodge was a ghetto where the people from the lodges were in the ghetto, and it was instilled by other lodges. The guillotine during Pluto and Aquarius wasn't intended for the common people, but not only kings, okay? There was one here, the king and queen of France, okay? Who did guillotine, okay? Fine, you're done with the king and queen of France. End of story, no? No. It was a war of the lodges. What do lodges do when they are fighting each other? Everybody's double agent. Why? Because the lodges work with the idea that not everybody can be free. And then everybody is Gog or Magog, everybody fights each other, nobody is free, and humanity can go extinct.